Hello, my name is Felipe, and this is a short story called 2032 that was started by me up to the climax, where I then left it to another classmate to finish. This story was written in a sort of diary entries. So, the first diary entry is about an astronaut who's currently in the International Space Station during the story, which takes place in 2024, but is told in the past. So, the characters just writing down what had already happened. And it's just a backstory, and he explains how he feels about the Earth. He thinks it's very beautiful, and he makes his way back home. The second story takes place in January 21st, 1944. It is about a completely different person who is a spy of American origins in London. He's looking for Niels Bohr, who asked for a collaboration. But since he's a spy rather than a physicist, this confuses him. He's going to have a meeting with Niels Bohr, but doesn't exactly know when. And he can't have Niels Bohr look for him because it has to be a very secret meeting. So far, he has had no luck in finding Niels Bohr. The third and fifth entry are about 2032 again, and it's just the astronaut explaining how he's going to launch in 1 week and explaining what will be happening during his trip and what he's doing. He's an engineer who will also be monitoring the radiation levels. The second entry in 1944, also the fourth in total, is explaining how the spy plans to go to Coventry because he heard that Niels Bohr is staying there. So he takes a cab and drives to Coventry and rents a room in a hotel. In the next entry, also about 1944, the spy reaches his hotel. He then invites Niels Bohr, whom he found there, over for tea. Niels Bohr explains to him that he must carry a briefcase along with an assistant over to Edinburgh. The assistant will knock on his door at precisely 1 a.m., and they will both drive up to Edinburgh and deliver the briefcase. In the next entry is 2032 again, and the astronaut is already sitting inside of the rocket. They are 10 seconds away from launch, and he is thinking about how he might not make it back. He suppresses his thoughts of everything that might go wrong and concentrates on the mission. The rocket launch goes exactly as planned, and everything goes well. Next is 1944. The spy is sleeping. Around at 11:30 p.m., he's woken up by a gunshot and a knocking on his door. He goes to the door and asks who it is. The code word is T, party, and when he hears that, he knows that it must be his assistant. The assistant goes straight for the briefcase and signals him to follow him. But then they hear footsteps in the corridor, so they realize that that is not the way out. So they look out of the window and decide that that is the safest option to get out. They jump out of the window and start making their way towards the car that was parked across the street. Then, suddenly, from around the corner, the assistant gets tackled. The spy reacts quickly and hits the attacker on the head with the briefcase. They make their way across the street, and the assistant is already nearly getting in the car when suddenly they hear a gunshot. The spy had been shot on his left shoulder, and with his remaining strength, he tossed the briefcase to the assistant when he hears one last final gunshot that hit him in the head. The next entry is in 2032 again. This is just the astronaut explaining that everything has gone fine, his routine, how there are 3 other astronauts on board, one named Alice, who is particularly annoying, and how he is actually, in a way, enjoying it. Later that night, he is woken up by a jolt of the spacecraft. He doesn't know what it is or what happened. He feels, though, like he is spinning. And once he looks out of the window, he realizes that he's correct. He realizes that they must have either collided with something or something exploded. he hears a high-pitched whistle coming from the research compartment. He decides to move slowly towards it, and he realizes that the door is not opening as it's supposed to. He remembers that that was the exact shift where 2 astronauts must have been working in that compartment. He acknowledges the fact that the other astronauts are most likely dead, and so he shifts his focus to the other compartment, which is the control room. He knocks on the door, and he actually gets a response from Alice. So then he tells her how to fix the spacecraft. She fixes the doors, and then the astronaut's hand accidentally floats past the motion sensor of the door of the room with the hole inside of it. The door begins to open, but then the motors aren't strong enough, and and a little part breaks off, and then the air starts leaking out. Alice manages to close the airtight door, and then they are safe. Once he is safe, the astronaut manages to look at the radiation levels and realizes that it is way too high, and that the spacecraft was damaged and radiation leaked in. And in the end, they both pass away from radiation poisoning.